back, everybody. Hey, thank you. I don't know if you have heard the news, but let me welcome the former CEO and now the Chief Creative Officer, yes, that is correct, of Arrowhead Games, Johan Pilestedt.
Hey everybody. Cool, yeah. So I see it seems like news travel fast in the Swedish games industry, which is great to hear. Well, I have a little bit of a video to show you guys, and then let's get straight into this talk, because I'm really bad at measuring, estimating times, and you'll get to see that in the presentation as well. Cool. In 12 weeks, Helldivers managed to outperform all expectations. 12 million copies sold, which is crazy. And just to put that into context, and this is my favorite reference, it's the same as the population of Sweden, plus 4 Icelands, which is I can't begin to describe how ecstatic the team is over this achievement. So many of you already know that my name is Johan Pilestedt. I'm the Chief Creative, Founder and CEO, or well, I used to be the CEO since I hired Shams Juriani to take that role. So not CEO anymore, but I am on Twitter. So you can follow me there, or X, but yeah. Always growing my reach. Okay, so I'm going to do a talk with you today that is appropriately clickbait titled, You Won't Believe This Actually Happened, and neither do we. To start this, I think that we need to look at what Arrowhead is as an organization and really go into the Arrowhead game design philosophy. It'll make sense towards the back end of this. And of course, we have the index from 0. I assume half the audience will agree. But when Arrowhead makes games, we have a tendency to put things into perspective through references, analogies, and various bizarre ways of describing things. So I want to pose to you guys a question, and just think about this. What is the best car in the entire world? Right? If you have a car in mind, just think about that car. It's that's the best car in the world. And then ask yourself, is this car suitable to all of these 5 groups of individuals? The family going on a family trip, the soldier going off to war, the racer trying to win the next GP, the miner who needs to carry heavy loads, or the rich guy, well, I don't know what the rich guy's good at, drive cars, I guess. So, and I hope this will start making sense. I actually used state-of-the-art neural network generative rendering technologies and advanced prompt writing to figure out what the best car in the entire world is. So I used AI, I used Midjourney to figure this out. And this is, according to AI, what the best car is. We got 3 options that are suitable for all of these professions. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. Each car fills a specific purpose. When each of the individuals have the appropriate vehicle, they'll be much happier. So, therefore, a car for everyone is a car for no one. And those of you that follow Arrowhead know that our studio motto is, of course, a game for everyone is a game for no one. And that is our creed that we live by. And digging a little bit deeper into this, what does this statement actually mean? Well, you can ask Ghost Style. He thinks, I think they mean if you try to cater for absolutely everyone, you create a pile of crap. and this is exactly what we do as an organization. Well, but not great crap, but we focus it. You know what I mean. Okay, anyway. Okay, we aim only to serve our fans. That is the core of Arrowhead's business. We only make games, and we only make it for a certain group of players. And those players are experienced social nerds. Experienced meaning that they played a lot of titles. They're hard to impress, they have vast knowledge, and they have a sensitive palette. Social, that they see gaming as a social activity that you do with friends to deepen the relationship between you and whoever you're playing with. And they also decide what they're going to play based on what their friends are playing and if they can get their friends to play it. And lastly, nerds. I think we know something about nerds. And they really care about their entertainment. They really care about whatever they're fans of. I mean, I'm a huge Warhammer nerd. I care deeply when Games Workshop announces some bullshit. Or when they do something awesome, I care equally much in the other direction, which is a double-edged sword, as we have come to realize. But nerds are generally emotionally attached to whatever they put their interest in. And I think it's worth remembering that if an X-Wing doesn't fly the way that it should, or the rate of fire of the TIE fighter isn't correct, I'm going to be pissed. We collectively at Arrowhead call these connoisseurs of gaming, and that is key to our target audience. We make games for connoisseurs, experienced social nerds. Why this is important is that we know that connoisseurs, they are the ones that drive players to play together. So our core fans search for new game experiences, something that is different enough that they haven't, something that's new to what they played before, where they can use their good judgment, their sensitive palette, to recommend games to their friends and say, hey, I play this game, you guys should buy it as well, and then we'll have a great time together. And their credibility is on the line, so we better not F it up. Yeah, cool. So what does this mean then for us? Well, our journey is long in time, but not that many games released, mostly because of, well, yeah, I'll get to that. But we, of course, started our career with Magicka through Showdown, Gauntlet, Helldivers, and Helldivers 2. And we have had varying degrees of success, but the more we stick to our guns and focus on our core values, the better our games perform. So, finally, getting to chapter 1, making of Helldivers 2. So, Helldivers 2 was originally envisioned, this is the original hypothesis, is that Helldivers is a co-op action shooter where you play as the evil guys in the galaxy, so you're stormtroopers or whatever it might be in pop culture. And how would you fare as one of the extras in the background? Like, you know, when they try to breach the cell block in Star Wars, and the first stormtrooper through the door, he of course gets shot in the chest by Han Solo. And that's the question of, would you do better climbing into that room trying to capture the bad guys that are trying to take over your lovely Death Star? They should have realized that Death Star is, well, we can get into that later. And then also, would you be able to survive in a galactic war without plot armor to protect you? It's really the question that we ask with Helldivers. And this then turned into the original vision for Helldivers, which is that we wanted to do as realistic of a take on what it would be to be in one of those squads of stormtroopers or Starship Troopers, mobile infantry, or whatever pop culture grunts that you can imagine. In an unforgiving galactic resource war, where players together complete operations against alien foes. And this is just the core of what Helldivers is. And of course, if you take this and give it to a number of developers, everyone will make their own interpretation of this. So there is something more that goes into, of course, making an Arrowhead game. But in 2015, Helldivers 1 was released. And we got asked if we wanted to do a sequel to Helldivers. And we said, yeah, I think that sounds like a lot of fun, because it will be easy. We already know the game, and just transitioning it to Helldivers 2. Could probably do that in 4 years, or actually we started in 2016, so it would have been 3 years approximately. Yeah, this is wrong. That's an incorrect assumption that taking Helldivers and making it to Helldivers 2 would be an easy task. These numbers mean a lot to me. This is the number of years, the number of months, and the number of days it took us to make Helldivers 2, which is quite some time, especially considering that we estimated that we would land somewhere around 3 years to create this game. So, with that, how can we take a game that was supposed to be in development for 3 years and almost end up at 8? And how did we manage to survive during that time? Well, that's why I'm here to tell you, I hope. Cool. So, apparently game development is hard, so they say. The reason why game development is hard is that it's not a straight line. Like, it's not like you start off, make a brilliant design document, make a production plan, and then just execute, and then eventually you're done with great estimates to go along with it. I mean, you'll finish something, but since quality and player value is the keys to success in making video games, it is iterative. You have to change your mind. You have to try things and evolve things. And a lot of times you try different things and come back to the original design because that was clearly the best one. So you're going full circle, and at that point it's like, what was the time spent for? Well, it was valuable because we realized something that we didn't realize earlier. But enough on that. So, game development is hard, but there are some things that can make game development even harder, and that is one of the reasons why it took so long for us to produce Helldivers 2. The first one is that we had a pretty rapid growth. When we started working on Helldivers 1, we were around 10 people. Towards the back end of the project, we were 16. We had Gauntlet in parallel development at the same time, about the same size of team. And when we started Helldivers 2, the first moment, we basically put these two teams together, becoming a team of some 35 individuals. So just growing past that limit of 20 is a challenge for most organizations that are not used to it, but it's even harder when it happens immediately, like right day and date, like immediately. And with that came a lot of problems that we didn't manage to solve. They were always lagging behind us, and we never got ahead of the issues. And this is a common theme within the development of Helldivers, that we're always trying to catch up. Furthermore, we were rather slow to understand the requirements of the organization. And part of this goes into the next point, which is that we were still retaining our small team ways of working. So small teams ways of working is very flexible, very dynamic. We can just turn around, make a decision on the fly, everybody's aware, and then that gets executed upon. But once we grew to 35 and eventually up to 40, up to 60, up to 100, if I just turned to one of the designers and said, hey, we should change this thing, the engineer in the other side of the office didn't understand what was going on. And it creates not only chaos within the project, but it creates chaos in the working condition of the company, which then in turn leads to stress, which then in turn leads to lower productivity and so forth. It becomes a vicious cycle when these things are not dealt with appropriately. And the reason why we didn't change this for such a long time is that we had this idea that we wanted to remain indie. We wanted to remain non-corporate and so forth, which is fair, like especially if you look at very large organizations where politics take over, that we don't want to be that. We want to be a hang out on the terrace and have a beer kind of company. But these are not mutually exclusive. Organizational structure, processes, proper planning, they are not in opposition to those things. They actually help ensure that we can retain that. Because eventually, when it goes too far, you'll get a pendulum swing where everything needs to be processized, everything needs to have clear, super organized structure, etc. And all the communication path lines are to be adhered in detail. Luckily, over time, we managed to overcome this, and we are still overcoming it. But these are consequences, like if you're in the state where we were, growing an organization, pay heed and do this job properly. Otherwise, you'll regret it in like 5 years later or 2 years later. Okay. And lastly, the small team ways of working does not have gates. There's no way to say, yeah, we're done with a prototype, therefore let's bring on more people. Instead, it's just an organic, like, well, maybe we add a vehicle, maybe we do something cool today. And what happens is that you're left with so much design, technical, and art debt, which is manageable by a small team because you can keep a ledger in your head of everything that's not finished. But whereas a large team, it just devolves into a Jira that's full packed of things that are in progress or half done. If even. Sometimes people are like, oh wait, there's 100 undocumented tasks that we also need to complete before we ship the game. Which is incidentally also how you get to 7 years, 11 days, and 26 months. 26 days, goddammit. Okay, and lastly, we had moving targets. And moving targets it's such a pitfall that's easy to fall into. So in one of the reasons why we extended the project was that we made a really, really nice prototype of the game. And we agreed together with PlayStation that, you know what? If we just double the budget, it will be even better. And being the greedy capitalist that I am, I of course said, yes, let's do that. That sounds wonderful. And then many more decisions like that were made based on something that seemed good, but the proper consequences were not taken into consideration, what that means for building the game and the organization. And we had this mentality from being a small studio where we basically said yes to any challenge because we knew that we could do it. But the problem is that suddenly when you can't do it anymore, that starts biting you in the ass. And of course we had the normal things, scope growth, change in business model, changed it back, we're a little bit flaky on it. We had bigger opportunities come our way and we were like, yeah, let's do that. And also Stingray or Autodesk decided to stop production of the engine that we're using. And we're like, can we build it ourselves? Yes. Should we? Well, that's actually a question nobody asked. So we can build it, and but there's opportunity cost. But all of this caused us to fall behind. We got a new, we set a new deadline. We increased the scope. We're still behind. We never stopped to catch up. And you know, it's kind of like when you're out running with a friend who's fit, and you sort of jog along. The friend stops, and they wait, and then when you catch up to them, they start jogging again. So you never get to catch your breath. And it always felt like that. We're always seeing the back of where we should have been. Cool. But these are pretty much like the key issues that we had during production. But still, 12 million copies sold, like so many positive reviews. And so, well, we used to have very positive reviews. But what made it work, right? Because this seems like it wouldn't work. And I think this is the key to an even more important thing when it comes to an organization. And this is from my personal perspective. There's many people that disagree and so forth. But it is grit, camaraderie, and compassion. Grit in being able to stay with it and say, you know what, we are doing this. We're not abandoning it. Quitting is not in the cards, like it's not on the table. So therefore, I know that since we're not going to quit, we just have to do it, and we just have to figure out a way to do it. Ideally in a smart way, but if not in a smart way, in a hard way. The camaraderie is the fundament that allows you to have grit. Like without the camaraderie and support that you have for each other in an organization, there's no way that you're going to be able to push yourself if you don't trust the person that's next to you. And camaraderie to me involves both but primarily the heart trust for somebody else. Like I know that this person wants to do well, even though they might oversleep or whatever it might be. But I know this person is in it together with me. And lastly, compassion. And it's not compassion for each other, well, it is as well, but it's compassion to the end user, to the gamer, that we want to deliver something that's so fantastic for this person, where they laugh, have a great time with their friends. And that is the reason why we get up in the morning. Every day, we think of those gamers eventually at the end of the road that maybe going through a hard time, and when they can play our game, maybe that gives them solace in a moment that might otherwise be hard. Cool. But there's other things. Just purely technical, like looking at the production of the game, we had some things that were immovable, that we always strive to do. And that is the focus that we had on the core of the game, for the core of the game experience. The first thing that we knew is that we wanted to create a hobby. And a hobby requires a sort of game that has a never-ending system with a lot of skill building required, a knowledge-rich environment where there's more things to figure out than what is taught in the tutorial, which we made a point out of in Helldivers. And it also needs to be multidimensional. There must be many ways of interacting with the experience for it to be considered a hobby. Like, for instance, if I play golf, it's not about going on the course and playing golf in the regular way. I can go to the range and smack a ball, and that flies off, and that's fun. I can play various forms of golf, or I could peruse the online catalog of golf clubs. So it's a multifaceted approach that is required to create a hobby. We also knew that we wanted to make a game that lets and forces the players to be creative. And when we talk about creativity in the games industry, we generally attribute it to things like Minecraft, Roblox, and so forth. But creativity also exists in action games. And it's the creativity of coming up with solutions at a moment's notice. And to allow for creativity, you need to have game mechanics that are complex. They need to be consistent. And players need to have the freedom to do what they want within a system. And with that, you'll be able to see crazy plays that players do. And that is a form of creativity that's dear to us. We knew that the game needed to be something where you can feel strongly. Key to this is like the dynamic tension, emotional peaks and valleys, and so forth. And lastly, of course, we need to do this together with other players. And in that, we have a strong fundamental core of what the game needs to achieve and what it needs to be. On top of that, we also have our design pillars, which is that we put the fantasy first. And what we mean by fantasy first is that if we say that you're supposed to be a mobile infantry grunt in the Starship Troopers, we need to ensure that it feels like being the mobile infantry grunt in Starship Troopers. So it means that we have constraints set already. Can a Starship Troopers mobile infantry jump 2 meters up into the air? No, they cannot. Not in the movies, at least, and not without assistance. In that case, we'd have to adhere to that. Ensure that we keep the fantasy safe throughout the entire journey and not compromise on it when things get tough. Sociality, a massively important topic for us, which is the ability for players to relate to the game, not only when they're playing the game, but outside of it. I want to be able to think about the game when I'm not playing it. I want to be able to interact online about the game. And to achieve that, we need to have the complexity, and we need to have something that's worth talking about. When we make games, we always focus on believability. And believability is hard to quantify, but my best explanation for this is, if you remember in Game of Thrones, where the dragons are attacking King's Landing, Queen's Landing? what fake fan. Anywho, and this guy gets on the ballista and decides to shoot down one of these dragons. I mean, the problem isn't that there's dragons in Game of Thrones. That is within the realm of believability of what's established within the show. But that this guy managed to snipe a dragon 1,000 meters away with a large crossbow with no sights. That really gets to me. Like, is that really believable? And the same thing goes in Lord of the Rings, where the troll stabs Frodo, but he survives due to the mithril jacket. And it's like, but how strong is that troll and how small is that hobbit? Isn't that mithril going to cause him to be in a hydraulic press? So believability is important for us. Like, it needs to make sense within the internal consistency of the world that we built. Cool. And lastly, playfulness is that we don't take it too seriously. Like, it is a game. It should be something that we want to relax and unwind with. Therefore, we don't want to try to change the world by, putting in two moral cookies into the game. Instead, we poke fun at things and do proper satire. And lastly, like, one of the most controversial topics is that we want to be fair to gamers. Like, when we made Helldivers, we ensured that we wanted to offer extreme value because it's easier to convince your friends to join the fight if it's only $40, or in Magica's case, $10, or Helldivers' case, $20. Like, I can spend that, like, it's the price of 2 cups of coffee, or for the $10 one, that is, which is crazy how expensive cups of coffee are. But that's not relevant here and now. We wanted to create a collaborative community. So, and in the fairness of this, we wanted to avoid the toxic elements, because toxicity when just enjoying an entertainment product is something that is a plague on this industry. And therefore, we decided to never include any PvP in the game, because we want the game experience to just be somewhere where you can unwind and not end up in a situation where you get bullied or harassed. We wanted to do live service right. And what we mean by that is that we focus on the service word and the live word, and not the intent that is sometimes thrown about by maybe a little bit more business-minded individuals that go like, live service, that's a good way to monetize. It's like, no, live service is a good way to keep people entertained, primarily. And lastly, and I've said this online on Twitter as well, we have to earn the right to monetize. So, and it goes into the other points, like, we need to build trust with the community in regards to the stewardship of what we're building, but also we can't charge $60 if we want the game to also have monetization. Therefore, we need to be fair to them and say, okay, we're offering a $60 title at $40. Cool. So, and all of this seems to have worked great, and maybe a little bit too well. So, because the question is, was it a successful launch? Well, I mean, 12 million in 12 weeks, pretty heck successful. But here's an actual, real picture of the Arrowhead server room the day of launch. Cool. And the problem with this is that we had a predicted peak concurrent user count of around 150,000 users. And the actual peak concurrent users were 750,000. And you don't have to be a genius backender to know that this is a problem. So, but how do you get out of one of those situations, right? Like, there's a big difference between these numbers. They don't add up. Well, remember this slide. It's back. So this is kind of how you solve that problem, at least for an organization like Arrowheads. Like, or rather, the foundation that we had in the grit, camaraderie, and compassion really allowed us to go through this journey together again. And to organize this, we actually created something that's called that we call the War Room, where we gathered all the most instrumental people that could make a difference, that were constantly in touch with each other. Kind of like that small studio mentality, but more as an organizational function to remedy any of these situations. And then, of course, massive kudos to the Arrowhead backend team. They did a stellar job of being able to reach up to that target. But yeah, at launch, the concurrency issue was not the only issue that we had. There were other fires that needed to be put out as well. But this really allowed us to be there, work accurately on things, and get really quick delivery times, or get the delivery time down or deployment time down. And especially working together with our QA partners that were based in America. We could make a build, test it overnight, and deploy it the day after. And that kind of rapid iteration that the war room organized managed for us to sort of try to catch up to what was going on. Secondly, we have what we call the cellar. And I wish this was the mastermind plan of Arrowhead all along, but maybe some of you can take this and build something off it. When you make a game for 7 years, 11 months, and 26 days, you have a lot of unfinished content that you threw away at some point. And once we went to launch, the community were screaming out for more content, more. Luckily, we could reach into the cellar and go like, well, this half-finished thing that we did 4 years ago, what if we polish that up and release that as a reward if they take this planet, and so forth. So the fortunate side effect is that we had that unfinished content. And right now, like after we know that this cellar that we have of content exists, we need to treat this carefully. We need to restock this cellar in the future and ensure that it doesn't run out, so we can keep up with the strong cadence. On top of that, one of the strengths as well is our lovely game master, who manages to keep the community entertained with really, for us production-wise, cheap content. And the community is extremely excited by the prospect of where the galaxy is going next week, what is happening. And to the point where we even had YouTubers and so forth that made actual newscasts of how the war effort is coming along. So it's a massive job from Joel and the team on being able to maintain this and keep it going week after week. And all of this amounted to, of course, like a lot of love. And one of the strengths of Helldivers as an IP is that it's so easy to get into the role-playing aspects of it. Like we had so many people. I mean, the meme game of the Helldivers community is extremely strong. And for us to just throw some gasoline on that is quite easy, and people keep posting more, keep re-engaging, and it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy of growth. Like, well, we say something, community talks about it, the game grows. And this has continued to this day, which is rather interesting and an interesting behavior to see. And I guess the learning from this is that people want to be part, but they need to understand what they need to be part of, or how they can be part. And our community has been an interesting bunch. Like, they started off being very, very friendly, very accepting, and very passionate. Some strong meme game and so forth. And then we taught them together to rally together and achieve great things together. And then once we had a little bit of a snafu with the account linking, they all rallied and review bombed us, which is an interesting turn of events. But it is, I guess, the community that you grow is the community that you get. And I love them still for it. And it is interesting to be known as one of the most downvoted games in Steam history. So, on to the last chapter. A lot of people ask, what made Helldivers 2 a smash hit? What is the thing that you can take to your businesses, to your teams, and ensure that you manage to knock it out of the park in the same way that we did? And this is an interesting question. I've heard that people say, it's the $40 price point. That's what did it. I'm like, are you sure that is evidence-based? Because I know that there are other titles that are $40. So it can't be $40 that's the defining factor of the success of Helldivers. And really, everybody has their own opinion of why Helldivers managed to do what it did. Release window, it's the emergent gameplay, it's the content cadence, it's the marketing, it's the price point, it's the accessibility, it's the leadership of the studio, it's the balance, and so forth. I don't really subscribe to just thinking about it in a simplistic way like this. I think it's an abstract thought. And there's so many hidden variables that needs to be understood to try to get to this essence of what made Helldivers as strong as it is. And really, I tried to boil this down ahead of this presentation, and like, is there a way that I can articulate this? And I did my best, but this is as well like just one point of view. Everybody has their own point of view of why it was successful. But I think that it is, in order, 3 things. Well, it's 5 things because I have 2 more slides after this, but it is the fundamentals. So the fantasy of the experience, actually delivering on it. Because a lot of people have made alien shooters before, but what we did different to them is that we really dug into the believability of what it would be to be in that game. And people say that Helldivers is the most cinematic game they played, which is strange because we don't even have a single cinematic in the game. It all happens based on us trying to force the fantasy of the game to play out like an action movie. This also goes into the kinesthetics of the game, the user experience, the play format, and so forth. Like having a strong fundament of what the game is supposed to be and being true to that is the first thing that you should look at in a video game. If somebody says, this is exactly like being a wizard in Harry Potter, okay, I want to know. Can I cast all the spells? Can I do all the things that I would expect? And if not, if there's artificial barriers or things that don't exist or that don't add, then it takes away from that experience. Like if I have a mana bar, I've never seen a mana bar in a Hogwarts movie about Harry Potter. Same in Star Wars. How many strikes does it take to cut somebody's hand off with a lightsaber? Right? It's 1. Fundamental to adhere to the fantasy. And then, but balance is no fun. Well, yeah, fine. Balance it, but don't make it 2 strikes. I know that that's false, and now we're not making a Star Wars game anymore. Secondly, is the style of the game. And the style comes from the studio mentality and philosophy. And this is deeper. It's why decisions are made at every level of the organization. Because in a single day of an organization of 100, there's probably 1,000 decisions being made. If you try to solve it by saying like this one decision was the thing that made it happen, I mean, that can't be true. Like it's 1,000 decisions a day. How can, and what is that? Like times 365. Well, assuming you work all year round, but I get times 200. Like there's so many decisions, and for there to be one single one that makes a massive impact, it's not really feasible. But what is feasible is the culture that enforces those decisions and the alignment that the team has on what is right to do in this particular moment. That is the style of the organization. And if you have a strong style that is appreciated by the community, that is something that's worth teaching to others and ensuring that it is adhered to. And for Arrowhead, it is our dumb analogies, our stupid jokes, our way of interacting with each other. We're a hugging studio. Everybody hugs. The murpiness of the studio, like the velocity of this particular anti-tank round, and it's such an important topic. And people can spend an entire lunch break arguing about pop culture. And I know this is common stuff to a lot of game studios, but as long as it's common to the studio, that will also go into the game, because the game is a representation of those who made it. And the last thing is the features. The feature set, and this is the one that we all talk about, right? But it is just one thing. Like, sure, we have the Galactic War, we have the Friendly Fire, and we have stratagems and so forth. Like those things, yeah, sure. But those things are a result of the fundamentals and the style leading to the features. So just looking at features and saying, well, that's the feature, and if I take that into this game, then it will be the best thing ever. Which is, incidentally, also why it's so hard to do sequels on somebody else's work, because you don't have the two fundamental first things. Okay, so two more things, like the live service done right. I want to mention this because I know it's a big topic. We ask ourselves, what right does live service games have to exist in the games industry or as products? And it's easy to say, well, we'll earn more money by being able to drop a content pack here and there. It's like, yeah, but that's not a reason why any consumer would want to engage with that. The reason why live service is a good thing for the games industry, if done right, is that it is a continuous hobby that evolves and allows players to get more of the games that they love. And if you forget this when making a live service game, I think that it's a, I don't want to say that that's a problem, but it is a problem. I think that it's a problem. I've decided it is a problem. It's a massive problem. Okay, and secondly, or well, thirdly, I don't know, never count on stage, right? If you want to have monetization in the game, if you think that people buying new stuff in the game, I mean, it's a fair assumption, like a lot of products work like that, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer, etc., all work by additional purchases. But don't charge $70 upfront and then ask somebody, then nickel and dime people for skins. It's like, it just is wrong. So be kind to users and do live service right by asking yourself, what is the value for the gamers in this game being live service, rather than what is good for the bank account. And this one now, big brain move, community. It's kind of like comms and unity, which is exactly like, I think, to be able to foster a live service environment, ensure that you're not afraid to talk to the fans. I mean, we're all nerds, we're all gamers, we're all hobbyists, fans, and we love to interact with the creators. I mean, that's what social media is. Of course there's assholes everywhere. 1% of the population is psychopaths, but don't let that stop you from interacting with the other 99% that are not assholes, or 98. I include some regular people that are not psychopaths that are also assholes. But be with them and enjoy the fandom. Enjoy interacting with them. And of course, sometimes people will get pissed, like when we force everybody to create a PlayStation Network account and then the people get really pissed. But at that point, it's like, sorry, yeah, that was a bad move by us. Can we move on now? Like, an apology doesn't mean that you devalue your own brand as an organization. It just strengthens you. And is it risky? Yeah, of course it's risky. Yeah. Is it risky? Yeah, it is risky. But if you don't take any risks, why even make games? Right? There's no point to it. And risk is an inherent part of running an organization and running a business and making games. Of course, those shouldn't go into like the more extreme cases, but in the normal circumstances, people are decent individuals that love to interact with their heroes or the creators of the game that they love. Cool. And with that, I just want to say thank you.
Hey, amazing, Johan.
Thank you.
You did good. You did really good. we have time for one question, if somebody has one question. Oh, wow, okay, let's do you there with the cap on. Can somebody get him a microphone, please? Yeah, yes, that guy.
Okay. Firstly, I want to say thank you for not making a free-to-play game because that impacted so much on the economy and everything. And the other thing, as a gamer, I want to ask you one thing. Who is accountable for the 500-kilo bomb that drops under your feet rather than the enemies?
So the question of the 500-kilo bomb. If you have an airplane coming in like this and it drops a bomb like this, don't ask it to drop a bomb just below a shelf, right? And don't stand on that shelf at that point. It's like, it just makes sense. So, and I think I'm responsible for that, or maybe it's one of our designers, Patrick, but yeah.
That's the most fun thing in the whole game, I can assure you.
Great.
And I've done it myself, so I mean, been blown up by my own creation, which is kind of bizarre.
Well, thank you so much, Johan, and good luck at your new position as Chief Creative Officer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
And we will be right back with another talk in like 10 minutes. See you then.